daring helicopter rescues late this afternoon about a mile from the White House. Air Florida Flight 90 had crashed on takeoff in a blinding snowstorm. It hit a bridge crowded with commuter traffic, sheared tops off cars, then plunged into the icy Potomac River. 73 persons were aboard the plane. At least 16 survived.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. The elements conspired to make today's tragedy in Washington. A raging snowstorm closed down the Capitol early, so that the bridge ferrying commuters to Virginia was clogged with early rush hour traffic. That Air Florida Flight 90, bound for Tampa and St. Petersburg, took off from National Airport with 68 passengers and a crew of 5. The plane was a Boeing 737. It was raining and snowing in Washington this afternoon, about 3:45 Washington time in the afternoon when the plane took off. Now, what exactly happened after that, no one knows, but this much is known. The plane hit the 14th Street Bridge. On the bridge, considerable traffic. The plane hit some of the vehicle traffic and then went into the Potomac River. Bob Schieffer picks up the story.
Just after 4 o'clock, only seconds after takeoff, the plane slammed into the south end of the traffic-clogged 14th Street Bridge, caromed back into the icy Potomac River, and sank like a stone. Local TV reporter John Goldsmith in the area reporting on traffic conditions saw it all.
The image of the scene that we found when we arrived here this afternoon was simply unbelievable. Cars sheared off just below the window level. Bodies in some of those vehicles. Other people clinging to life, rescue squadsmen trying to revive them. At least 5 or 6 cars were simply destroyed by this aircraft as it was crashing. It knocked a truck almost off the bridge with 3 men in it. The truck was held up by the retaining wall. The plane took out that retaining wall, sheared it off, landed in the water, scattering debris between the 2 spans of the 14th Street bridges. Then the helicopter came in and started plucking survivors from the water. We don't know how many people were taken out of the water, but we can only imagine that it was very few. We only saw very few, perhaps half a dozen. The rescue effort in this bitter cold with people who had been in the water for some time, trying to cling to life preservers as the helicopter lifted them out into shore, into ambulances, into people that could help them. It's one of those incredible scenes that Tell me what happened.
We just changed lane to come across the bridge. The traffic was really heavy, and then we heard of a sort of swishing noise come over, and then all of a sudden, this was a large crash, and it turned the truck over, and we all flipped over in the truck, you know. And then, you know, I said to my buddy, I said, well, it's got to be a plane crash. And then we got out, we looked, we saw the plane go by, you know, and everybody started hollering, so we know it was a plane crash then, you know.
Yeah, you looked around and saw all this, what I can only describe as a lot of carnage. When you looked over and saw the plane, what did you say?
Well, we saw people try to get out of the plane, and that's all, you know, at the time, you know. It happened so sudden, you know.
Did any of them get out? Could you see where they got out?
Yeah, it was a few people was alive. They would try to climb up on top of the plane, you know.
I was driving down this, cruising down real slow, and all of a sudden I heard this big roar, and all of a sudden everything shattered. And then I looked around, and these cars over here were smashed, and I said, oh, God.
The bridge spans the Potomac just north of Washington's National Airport and is one of the heavily traveled traffic arteries connecting the District of Columbia with the Virginia suburbs. Authorities said at least 16 survived, but with ice clogging the river, recovery work was more difficult as night fell and getting the injured to hospitals was complicated because of the massive traffic jams that had already blocked Washington streets when government offices were closed down early because of the Washington snowstorm. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
CBS News will present a special broadcast on that Washington air tragedy tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central Time. To update, and for those of you who may have joined us late, the mayor of Washington now says there are about 40 persons known dead in today's crash of that Air Florida jetliner. Deborah Potter has a live report from the crash site.
The Air Florida plane bound for Fort Lauderdale went down shortly after takeoff from National Airport and crashed into the 14th Street Bridge. It smacked into several cars and knocked down an abutment before splitting in two and diving into the icy rivers below. Air Florida officials have confirmed there were 73 people on board the plane. 16 are known dead, both from the plane and the bridge. So far, there are rather 40 people known dead and 16 known survivors. Rescue teams have been fighting through the icy waters of the Potomac River, trying to reach the tail section of the plane that was sticking up, trying to attach a rope to the tail. Workers were trying to do that and found a body. The body pulled to the shore where waiting ambulances were standing by to rush to local hospitals. It's an eerie scene with helicopters circling above, casting a glow on the scene below next to the Potomac River. Deborah Potter, CBS News on the 14th Street Bridge in Virginia.
That's the CBS Evening News for this Wednesday. Until our special broadcast on the Washington air crash later tonight, Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us.
Wang announces the most important step in managing information since the computer, WangNet. WangNet is the electronic connection that gives anyone in your office any kind of information they need instantly by linking together every conceivable kind of office equipment, no matter who makes it. WangNet links you to floors below or satellites above, using just half its capacity, leaving room, of course, for Wang's next breakthrough in office automation.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.